My name is Mike Pitkevich. I am the Executive Vice President for Institutional Advancement, as well as the Executive Director of the Foundation, and I welcome you to our 30th Annual Scholarship Luncheon. This is one of my favorite days of the year. I've been at the college for about 3 years and have had the opportunity to come in the past to celebrate our scholars and also celebrate those people that are here helping them try to achieve their goals and their dreams, so the donors, obviously. You may know this talking point, but over the last 5 years, the foundation has awarded over $1.3 million in scholarships to deserving students. And again, it's all about how do we help bridge that gap for people to look to achieve their dreams. Today, we're going to distribute 116 scholarships at the lunch today in person. And there are dozens more scholars that unfortunately were not able to be here, but there's over 200 scholarships that are being awarded by the college this year, totaling over $300,000. So a brief thank you for all the donors in the room for helping us with that goal. We're going to keep it moving fast. 116 people is a lot of people to get up here. Before we dive into the program, though, I just want to take a minute to acknowledge some of the VIPs that we have in the room, people that have been helping us out in the past. From our foundation board, we have Foundation Vice Chair Tom Baker. Tom, can you just stand up and wave for us? We also have a new board member in the room, a relatively new board member since the end of last year, Scott Stenslick. Scott? We have Provost Rick Wachowski. I'm not sure if Rick is here yet, but I wanted to acknowledge Rick, and also Vice Provost PJ Wiles. From our Board of Trustees, unfortunately for us, there's a competing event today. There's a Women in Leadership event going on. A lot of the board members are there. But we do have a current alumni and former student trustee, Neil McCallum, is in the room. Neil? So thank you all for being here. Before I invite President Hikoy up to offer some welcome remarks, just wanted to now acknowledge another group of people that are with us today that put a lot of volunteer hours and time in. There's a lot of work that goes into reviewing 200 plus scholarship winners. And so they're extremely generous with their time, and we just want to acknowledge the Scholarship Awards Committee. If any of the Scholarship Awards Committee are here, can you please just stand up? We'd like to say thank you. There's a couple of people here. Thank you. Keeping it moving right along, I would like to invite the 11th President of Erie, SUNY Erie, Dr. Dan Hikoy.
Thank you, Michael. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us on this very auspicious occasion, the 2018 Scholarship Luncheon. Now, as Mike said, this is one of our favorite events. It renews our faith in humanity. So today is an occasion to celebrate the recipients of these scholarships, as well as celebrate the generosity of the donors here who have contributed to these scholarships. They say immortality comes when you do something that people don't forget. And for our donors who have generously contributed to these scholarships, their gift will not be forgotten. They will not be forgotten by the individuals today who have received those scholarships. They will not be forgotten by the family members of these students that received those scholarships. And they will not be forgotten by the communities around these individuals receiving scholarships today. So because of your generous donation, you will have an outsized impact on our community. You will fundamentally change the trajectory of our students, some of whom, for their family, they represent the first to go to college. And so this is an opportunity thanks to you. I also want to acknowledge and celebrate the achievement of the students receiving these scholarships. And I hope that you out there today will take the opportunity to make the most of your scholarship to explore your passion, to become whole in your journey, and to realize your potential. And I also hope at some point you will be in a position to give back to the next generation of students and have an impact on this community. Because SUNY Erie, that's what we're calling ourselves now, SUNY Erie has an outsized impact on Western New York. We provide students with preparation for the jobs of today and tomorrow. Our students participate in a collaborative and healthy democracy, and they contribute to the economic competitiveness of our country. So the cycle of giving started here today, and you as recipients of these scholarships at some point will contribute to that cycle of giving. Because I don't know, for most of you out there, in 80 years, we won't be around. So what will we have when we are not here? How will we be remembered? How can we leave a legacy that will have an impact on this generation, the next generation, and the next generation to come? You can do that by giving to this college. So I tell this tale of two cities. It's not the Dickens tale. The two cities are Buffalo and Toronto. As some of you know, I grew up in Toronto. So in 1904, 1 or 7, we had, right here in Buffalo, in Delaware Park, the World's Fair. The president came here to highlight the innovation and the prosperity that was happening in America, right here in Buffalo. At that time, Toronto was half the population of Buffalo. It was an afterthought, a swamp, trees. Fast forward to 2017. Or is it 2018? I failed math. 2018. Toronto is 6 million people. Buffalo is half the population it was in 1901, 4, or 7. Right, during the World Fair. So what happened? I grew up in Toronto, so I know exactly what happened. Toronto invested in education. You do not have a successful city by accident. Toronto doubled down on giving its people a good education. I went from kindergarten through PhD through the public system. I went to the University of Toronto. And it's because of that investment back then that we see Toronto of today. So, 2018, right here in Amherst, is the 200th anniversary of the city. It's been around for 200 years. So, when this was founded in 1818, is that right? When this city was founded in 1818, this was just a patch of dirt. Fast forward 100 years to around 1918, this was the center of America. So much so, the president would invite the world right here to celebrate innovation and prosperity in America. Fast forward 100 years to 2018, and we know Buffalo is the 5th poorest city in America, one of the most segregated cities in America. What will the next 100 years be? What will the next 100 years be? So I come from a culture that's 5,000 years old. So we think in terms of centuries. But I think what is happening now with the generous donation of people here has contributed to the opportunity to revive this particular region for the next 100 years and the next 100 years after that. So let's give a big hand for our donors who have contributed to the future of this region. Thank you.
We would like to take a minute to recognize and thank some of the people and organizations who established new scholarships over the past year. There are many reasons individuals and organizations sponsor scholarships, and we know there's a variety of interests and opportunities to do so outside of the college. So we want to thank you for choosing to support SUNY Erie students. When I announce the name of your scholarship, if you wouldn't mind, if the representatives of that organization or that family would mind coming up, we've got a little token of our appreciation up here in front. Patrick Artieri and Gary Stanton Memorial Business Administration Scholarship. Do we have anybody in the room? Oh, hi, Lucy. Come on up, please. Next up, we have the Kidney Foundation of Western New York. Next up, we have the Donna Zolkevich Frost Memorial Schools Fund. Scholarship Fund, excuse me. Finally, we have Mary Jo Sullivan, Mrs. Mary Jo Sullivan, if you can join us up here, for the Dr. Wayne O'Sullivan Scholarship. Oh, there she is. So if you've been to the scholarship in years past, you might have heard from a scholarship recipient or a donor who's chosen to support a scholarship. And it's a tradition that we are going to carry on this year again. You know, I think if you're a student here or you're an alumni here, you know the tremendous faculty that we have at this college and the tremendous education that you get as a result of their caring about our students and their involvement in our students' lives. One of those faculty members was Dr. Wayne O'Sullivan, and we asked Mary Jo, his wife, to come up and share a few words with us about the reason behind starting the scholarship and really to tell her story. So please join me in welcoming Mary Jo O'Sullivan. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's really such a pleasure to be here, and I've been revising my thoughts as I listen to the President's greetings. But first and foremost, let me extend my warm congratulations to all of the students who are winning scholarships today. You've demonstrated that you're good students and that you are worthy of these scholarships, and you really are making it worthwhile for the donors in the room who've so generously given to you. They believe in you and your success and your future, and they also believe in this Buffalo community that is hopefully going through a renaissance to the President's comments. So basically, I'm here to tell the story. Why did we start this scholarship? And I will tell that story in a minute. I just want to, the revisions I've already made kind of connect with the President's message because my husband, Dr. Wayne O'Sullivan, grew up in Canada. So he spent the first 12 years of his life in Ottawa and came here really with his family. He was the oldest of 5 at that time, and then there were 2 more after that. So his education started in Canada and he finished it here, but he had certainly some challenges as an immigrant. And he was really helped along by some wonderful teachers that made a difference in his life and inspired his career as a teacher. So to say why we established it, my husband taught here for 45 years, and I wasn't even going to summarize those years, except I met the wonderful student who's receiving the first award from our scholarship, and that's Makish, and he is from Nepal. So Wayne worked for 25 years at the city campus. He started when it was not that pretty building at the old post office. It was at Main and Riley You know, I think it was almost a condemned building, but they got started there and they selected a wonderful collection of faculty who were talented and committed to students and to the community and to learning, teaching learning. And it was exciting time because they were all new and people in the city, especially in the inner city, were very excited that the county finally committed to a city campus. So he was one of those pioneers, and he and his colleagues were there for quite a few years and then moved to that beautiful campus that I know has to be preserved because it is a gorgeous building. But he didn't start in that happy looking building, but they had a happy experience. But when they got to the new campus, Wayne, after 15 years of teaching downtown, ECC happened to have a president who was very committed to international education and supported Wayne's dream, if any of you remember Wayne, of establishing an international resource center. And so he spent 10 years at that campus developing that program, writing grants, Department of Education grants, National Endowment for the Humanities. I'm trying to think of some of the others. The New York State SUNY research grants, the Wendt Foundation, the Statler Foundation. So it helped to create this exchange program and helped to develop curriculum, internationalizing the curriculum. And his background, he was a history professor, but he also wanted to bring this experience to ECC. Plus, he loved to travel. So he established some exchange programs with colleges in England, in Paris, and in Japan. And I studied also in Israel. So I just wanted to share that because the student who's getting our award today is an international student. It wasn't even something I was going to mention, but Wayne would be delighted that an international student at ECC is receiving his first scholarship. So let me tell the story why we started the scholarship. And please bear with me a bit because my husband just passed away in October of 2017. But we established this scholarship because he was so grateful for the wonderful career he had at Erie Community College. And so we had an opportunity after his diagnosis with cancer, and it was a multiple myeloma. If you know something about that disease, it's a tough disease. But the gift of cancer is it gives you some time, and you know, people don't think there's too many gifts that go with cancer, and it was a challenging journey. But the gift of it was it gave us some time to reflect on our lives and to think about those things that made our lives so special. And top of the list was Wayne's career at Erie Community College. And so we talked about, you know, we also had opportunities to see friends we loved, to say goodbye, to come to some closure. But basically we talked about legacy. The president this morning talked about legacy, and this was something Wayne wanted to do. He wanted to establish a scholarship to give back, to say thank you, to pay it forward. And so the blessing was he had a chance to shape the scholarship. It's nothing I did for him after he died. It's something we did together. And he was diagnosed in February of 2015. He died in October. We established the scholarship just about a year ago from now. So I think there was one other student who received the scholarship, if I'm not mistaken, but this is the first time we've been presenting at this event. So basically, he could set the criteria. We worked together on that, and the criteria was that he wanted it to go to a deserving student, a hardworking student who needed help to close that financial aid gap. From his teaching and from his advisement, he knew that students really he was committed to their success, as ECC was, but he saw the obstacles that students experienced firsthand. And one of the biggest obstacles was that students had to work too many hours while they went to school. And Wayne was that student when he studied for his doctorate at UB. He was a full-time teacher at ECC and studying for his doctorate too, so he understands the challenges of trying to get it all done on time. And so he wanted to help close that financial gap and hopefully relieve that student from having to work so many hours so he or she could be successful. And there were the other criteria that you would normally see on most scholarships, that academic progress and letters of recommendation, but primarily to help the student who really just needed that bit of help to close the gap and have more time to give to their studies. So that's the story about why we started the scholarship. It's not endowed yet, but I'm really committed to moving towards that. So I can't say that I can make that happen today, but I can make it happen in a few years. Okay, so I just want to share that as well. So since I've revised my remarks, just give me a minute here. I think what's interesting about Wayne, and I would, this is a sidebar as I look at McKeish, is that he didn't have a history course at ECC. That's heartbreaking. And the only one he had at Oklahoma. I don't even know the name of the university, but it was not a good experience. So I'm sorry you didn't have Wayne's experience, the experience of Wayne as your teacher. It's really difficult to summarize the essence of Wayne, but my son did it very nicely in his eulogy. My son can't be here because guess what? He's a history teacher too at Marist College, and his father wouldn't want him to miss class, so especially at this time of year. But this is what my son said about his dad, and I think it summarizes it pretty nicely. The most basic element of my father's vocation as an educator was his ability to master whatever subject compelled him the most. Although mild-mannered on the surface, his passions for history, art, literature, social justice, and politics ran deep. He always had about 5 books going at a time, multiple plays to attend per month, ongoing writing projects, original poetry crafted on his computer, and freshly painted watercolors in his basement office. My husband took over the house, and plans for his next international trip. Unlike most academics, he never specialized in one narrow area, teaching at least 5 courses a semester, that's the ECC way, and covering everything from ancient world to American history to World War II. He became expert in so many subjects that he could conduct a deeply informed discussion about anything. When teaching about art history, he applied for a Fulbright grant to learn about it in Italy. When developing a course on World War II, he wrote his own book manuscript. When intrigued by Bob Dylan, he bought literally every album by the artist. He was an intellectual jack of all trade, and he mastered them all. I think that kind of sums up my husband, Wayne. I just wanted, and this was a point my son wanted me to make because he is like a fellow teacher. And he said one of the things he always admired about his father is that he really was always updating the craft in teaching, staying current with the technology. 45 years is a long time. He started with typewriters and whiteouts and chalkboards and moved through the evolution of the computer, the floppy disk and the hard disks, and then the word processor, and then the internet. And as Wayne his disease was progressing. He couldn't quite keep up with the technology, but in cleaning off his home office desk, I found this article that he was reading about how to integrate YouTube into your history class. So he was always trying to stay current, and as much as he was loved in his department by his colleagues, both at the North Campus, and they looked to Wayne to mentor the young faculty. The young faculty mentored Wayne in the use of technology, so you had that combination of the wisdom of the older, distinguished professor and the young, talented, tech-savvy young professor, so it was really a lovely combination. So in my remaining remarks, I would just like to talk a little bit about Wayne the teacher and put my remarks around a quote from Kristen McCullough, if some of you remember the Challenger. She was the teacher astronaut who went down with the Challenger, that aborted attempt. And she was the teacher though, and her quote is, "I teach, I touch the future." And again, I think your president and I didn't collaborate on the remarks, but they kind of tie in, I think, pretty nicely. And so I thought it would nothing pleased Wayne nothing more than to get that unexpected thank you note from a student, either a handwritten note or an email. And so I thought I'd read about 3 of those, just excerpts, not the whole things, to share, maybe to give you an insight on the impact that his teaching had. Before I read them, I would just say my quick and dirty, probably unscientific calculation of how many students he actually taught over 45 years probably approximates 16,000 students. So I think that is impactful, and he had a drawer full of these notes, most of which he didn't show me, but I went through them and kind of culled them and pulled out 3 that I thought might be poignant for you today. So here's the first one. It was written by a young man who came to ECC as a non-matric just to take a couple of history courses for fun. And this is based on an assignment he had for English class, so to interview a professor. This is what he said. I enjoyed interviewing Dr. O'Sullivan and got a lot out of this assignment. As my wife and I were eating dinner the day I interviewed him, I told her I'm even more excited about my decision to pursue a career as a history teacher. To me, the process of getting to my goal of being a history teacher is almost as exciting as the job itself. I came to Erie Community College as a non-matriculated student just to take a couple history classes just for the fun of it. The first 2 courses I took were both taught by Dr. O'Sullivan. The next thing I knew, I was a matriculated student going to school full-time, and I guess you might say the rest is history. So that's story number 1. Number 2, and I think this is poignant because Wayne was an early adapter to the technology. He'd teach the online courses and the hybrid courses. And this was written by a student who took an online course. Now, I think online courses are so helpful to students who are so busy. But I think it's hard to be an inspiring teacher in an online course, but I think this is evidence that it's possible. So it says, hello, Dr. O'Sullivan. I've completed your fall 06 History 101 online course. I would like to thank you for piquing my interest in American history. I know the information provided has always been available, but you have presented it in such a way that I couldn't wait to read and learn what was to come next. I didn't realize how little I knew about American history. But thanks to you, your discussion boards, and your essays, I've achieved a greater appreciation, understanding, and respect for American history. I'm an African-American female, and I would recommend that every African-American ECC student take your class. You presented blacks and their struggles in a positive way, highlighting the strides, contributions, and the momentous part we played in getting Abraham Lincoln to make the Civil War a war on slavery and for the emancipation of slaves. I applaud your efforts in instructing this course and would like to thank you again for renewing my appreciation for American history. Thank you. And finally, on a lighter note, but I think that's really poignant, some of Wayne's students were students from his former life as a soccer coach, if you can imagine an absent-minded college professor teaching soccer, but he did only because he said yes and learned how to do it. But in any event, some of these young men were colleagues of my son's growing up, and so this was written by one of them. Dr. O'Sullivan, thank you so much for helping me out. I truly appreciate and also learned a lot about World War II. You are one of the best professors I've ever had in my college experience, and believe me, I've had a lot of professors. Without you getting me into your class, I would not have graduated in May. Not only did you make my day, but also my parents as well. I think they're still glowing from watching me walk down the aisle. Also tell Mike, that's our son, I said hello and wish him well. Once again, I'd like to say thank you. You are as good a professor as you are a soccer coach. So on that note, I'd like to just close and say I think Wayne did touch the future, and if we can in some small way perpetuate his scholarship so we can pay it forward and touch the future of students like our honoree today and the students to come. Thank you for your attention, for letting me brag a little bit about my husband, who's a real humble guy. Thanks.
Please join me in a round of applause congratulating our student scholars. Real quick, Just a couple of thank yous before we adjourn. I'd like to offer special thanks to the people at the college and facilities, maintenance, IT, auxiliary services, and of course, the great kitchen crew from our hospitality and culinary management program that served your delicious meal today. So thank you. Help me thank them. Yeah. And then for the scholars that are here and the donors that are here, we are going to take a scholar picture on the stairs outside. If you can just gather outside the door here, we'll take one big group scholarship, sort of like your class. If the donors are here and they want to interact with the scholars, that's also an opportunity for us to do that. Yeah, please bring your certificates, as Chris mentioned, so that we can have that in the picture. I'd also like to publicly thank the team here at the college that helps put this event on, Chris Jengo, Jonathan Ray, Ernie Keel, Donna Procknell, Paula Sandy, Pam Stokowski, Lydia Moskovich taking videos, Kelly Lipiana for their support. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for supporting the college and our scholars.